Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 21st, 2024 work session of the Town of Ossining. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I hope everybody got a chance to vote today. Both the school district budget and the library budget, along with the school board and library board. Vote is going on at the Ossining High School Gymnasium until 9 p.m. today. Good. On Thursday, May 23rd, this Thursday, the Taconic State Parkway northbound ramp to 9A will be closed for guide rail repair, pothole repair, litter cleanup, and mowing between the hours of 9 a.m. and 2 p.m., according to the New York State Department of Transportation. Okay, we want to wish a happy EMS week to all of our EMS personnel who work hard to save our lives each and every day. OPAC, Ossining Parents Advocating Collectively for Our Children, is hosting an important meeting tomorrow, Wednesday. Don't miss Know Your Rights, Dignity for Our Students tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. in the Ossining Public Library. For more information or to register, email opac10562@gmail.com. Tomorrow is the last day to view the Ossining School District art shows. Grade K through 5 are at the Ossining Public Library, 1 to 9 p.m. And grade 6 to 12 are at the Bethany Arts Community from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Westchester County Memorial Day service will take place on Friday at 11 a.m. at Lasden Park and Arboretum, thank you, and Veterans Memorial in Katona. Westchester Collaborative Theater welcomes jazz of the Ray Blue Quartet on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Also, Sing Sing Kill Brewery is hosting Sing Sing Kill Birthday Bash and karaoke at 8 p.m. On Sunday, T-Town is hosting a Memorial Day hike as the unofficial start to summer. This will be a moderate hike, which will span T-Town Lake Reservation and John E. Hand Park. This hike is scheduled from 10 a.m. to noon. Our big Ossining Memorial Day Parade will be held on Monday, May 27th. The parade begins at 9:30 a.m. and proceeds down Croton Avenue onto Main Street, Spring Street, and ending at Nelson Park. The parade is hosted by the Central Committee of Organized War Veterans of the Town of Ossining, and Michael G. O'Connor will be the host and chair of the event at Nelson Park around 10. American Legion Post 506, American Legion Post 1054, American Legion Parker Bale Post, American Legion Sing Sing Officers Post, and Veterans of Foreign War all are sponsoring this event. The Beeline bus system will have seniors ride free on Thursday, May 30th. This is for ages 65 plus. Calling all musicians and venues. June 21st will be Make Music Day, presented by Mike Risco Music. If you are interested in performing or hosting, bless you, get in touch with them at 914-762-8757. New York State Department of State for New Americans has released a free English language learning tool called Cell Ed that helps new Americans learn English at their own pace and on their own time. Simply Google New York State Cell Ed for more information. As always, our Ossining Public Library will be hosting a bevy of events, including movies, craft events, meditation, tutoring, homework help, yoga, book clubs, and so much more. Please see their website at ossininglibrary.org. Thank you. Do any of my co-counsel have? Okay. Moving on to the departmental report by our assessor, Mike Foissier. Thank you for joining us, Mike.
Thank you. Good evening, folks. Bear with me for just one moment. I will be sharing my screen. All right. Over the next few slides, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the work that my office has been doing to prepare the tentative assessment roll that will be published on June 1st. The staff has done a really great job this year. We had a new assessment clerk, Sierra Champagne, who came on board just after grievance day last year, and she's really helped to modernize some of our workflows. Our part-timer, Jackie, excellent, really has been someone who came in, after we lost a staff person a little over a year ago, has been very, very helpful. And of course, Al and Sharon, who are kind of the backbone of the department, have been here a long time and have a lot of institutional knowledge. We work collectively to value all 10,100 plus properties throughout the town, the two villages and the town outside. And this year we had just a slight uptick in parcel count. There was a new subdivision on Stormytown Road and one or two other newly created lots, but largely the percentages remain the same year over year. 95% taxable and just a smaller fraction of wholly exempt taxable state, special franchise, and utility properties. Here is the property assessment roll for 2024 by type. We are more than 2/3, just over 2/3 residential, 1, 2, and 3 family homes. 18% of our parcel count would be condo units, and a smaller fraction of our parcel count devoted to vacant land, commercial properties, apartment buildings, and other miscellaneous commercial and utility. In terms of the share each of those property types represents, it's pretty even actually. Residential was about 65, 66% of the count, and they represent about 68% of the taxable assessed value for the town. Commercial actually jumps ahead of condo, representing 8% of the taxable assessment for the town. Condos, apartments, and so on and so forth, public services, vacant land, smaller than 5% of our 6.8 nearly billion in taxable assessed value for the town. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of the real estate market. This is at a town-wide level, not the villages or the town outside separately. In order to develop a defensible trend to understand what's going on, there really has been a shortage of arm's length sales for the 12-month period that precedes valuation date. Valuation date for the 24 roll is July 1st of 2023. So we had to work with far fewer sales than we're accustomed to using, 300 plus sales during a 12-month period. We actually had fewer than 180 sales to work with. But that being said, leveraging some online resources like Douglas Elliman and Houlihan Lawrence, and there are a host of other reputable sites out there to pull some market information. We did some of our own trend analysis, and we started to see some cooling, even despite the strong sales that we were looking at. The sale price per square foot was certainly up, but you can see how it's starting to crest a little bit. I just want to draw your attention to that last period, 23 to 24. It's kind of a false flag at the moment. We don't have all of 24 yet, so we'll have to see how that shapes up over the summer and into the fall. But we will very much be paying attention to the sales market for the 2025 revaluation, which is kind of a big year for the department because it is what we consider to be a full reval, where we completely rebaseline all of our comps. We do the models over again. We look at land, cost, and a host of other important contributors to value. We do sketch verification, and really it's not a typical update year, it's a full reval. So we will be paying attention to the market. Here are our average and total percent changes in total value by neighborhood for residential properties in the town of Ossining. Typically, we saw, in order to maintain our status as a 100% full value municipality, that we had to increase our values anywhere from 6 to 8%, give or take, for the majority of our neighborhoods. And in doing so, we were able to achieve, again, that 100% status that the state will certainly examine our roll and determine whether or not we fall within the acceptable range for that. The median change was at 7%. The average was a little bit higher because we had some construction that always sort of drives up the average when you have even just a few dozen properties doing alteration work or vertical and horizontal enlargements. They tend to drive up those values more than town average. But we are seeing more stability in trends between neighborhoods. This is not something that we had in the past. In the past, you could go from neighborhood to neighborhood and sometimes see a trend in value year over year, anywhere from 4 or 5% to 12 to 14%. And it really shifts the liability from one geographic area of the town to another. And we were trying to minimize that this year. While maintaining equity in the role, how do we prevent an excessive amount of shift between neighborhoods? And as most of our taxpayers, we try to inform and educate. We try to tell them that if your value increased roughly the town average, that all else being equal, you really shouldn't see a large change in liability for the following year, which is the 25 tax year, based on this 24 roll. So a little bit back to equity and how we're doing in terms of our scorecard for residential properties, 1, 2, and 3 family homes. As I stated before, we are within plus or minus 5% of 100. That's at just over 96.5%. We didn't want to push it any higher than that. We didn't think it was necessary to increase values more than what we did, about 7 to 8% on average. And even with those trends, we were able to achieve a coefficient of dispersion, which shows some uniformity among properties of similar physical and locational characteristics. We came in at a very low COD of 6.5. That demonstrates that we are, well, not just within industry standards, but there's a very little dispersion. A price-related differential, another important statistic. This stat shows us whether or not we're overvaluing or undervaluing property depending on their price point. And at a PRD of 1.012, it's showing that our role is not overly regressive. So we're not favoring, at least not in this sales sample, it does not show that we're favoring the higher end of the market at the expense of the lower end. With regard to commercial valuation, a slightly different animal because we don't really just use sales alone. Income producing properties, we use direct income cap as our base methodology, but we still look at sales. And when we reviewed the sales of retail, office, industrial, and other mixed use income producing properties, what we found was that despite the doom and gloom story that we've been reading about in other markets, our vacancy rates, at least for retail and office, they're not excessive. They're really not that high. This is CoStar data, industry leader in this type of commercial real estate information. We do see high cap rates for office. That's not unsurprising, not surprising rather, but we're still seeing steady occupancy and nothing to raise any alarms about. At the end of the day, we found that looking at our income and expense and some of the industry data that's out there, that we needed to trend our commercial properties roughly anywhere from 3 to 5%, depending on the asset class. And so that's generally where we approach the commercial properties this year. And as you folks know, because our co-ops and condominiums are valued similar to our residential rental apartment buildings, those trends would apply to the condos and co-ops as well, as opposed to the trends that we were looking at for the 1, 2, and 3 family homes. And here we see some total and taxable assessed value changes. As I mentioned before, it's up roughly 6 to 7%. We saw a $450 million increase in assessed value from 23 to 24. And about a 6.5% increase in town taxable assessed value from 23 to 24. It tracked very, very similarly. And you can see almost all of it's being driven by of course, the taxable, although there was an increase in some of the state-owned special franchise. We did see some of that. There's kind of a bit of growth in 1 or 2 of their properties. Those are the advisory appraisals that we get from New York State that drive those values. And with regard to the municipalities themselves, well, Briarcliff Manor last year, they were trended at a lower rate than the Village of Ossining or the town outside. And what we found is because they received a lower trend last year, that this year when we reviewed arm's length sales, we actually had to increase their values just a hair more than properties in the village of Ossining or the unincorporated portion outside. So you'll see a 7.3% total change in value in Briarcliff Manor. The village of Ossining was 6.2, and the town outside was at 5.2. Again, we saw some cooling down of sale prices, low inventory, and perhaps next year we might be looking at, and I don't want to guess, but just looking at the available data, we could be looking at low single-digit increases, or perhaps even a flat market. We'll see. Could even be a slight reversal. Moving on to the other side of the equation, the exemptions side of it, we did see some pretty significant changes. It's pretty unusual within a 2-year period to have this many changes in how exemptions are administered, but some of this is from the state level. It's mandated. Some of it's from the county level. Some of it's what we've locally adopted. And just this year, the Village of Briarcliff Manor, they actually adopted the higher sliding scale of income for the senior citizen exemption. It expanded the benefits to more of their homeowners. That also applied to the low income disabled exemption. The Ossining School District, they adopted the firefighters exemption. So we were able to administer and apply the exemption to that portion of the bill. And here's a big one, the federal adjusted gross income. Unlike many years in the past where we would use straight gross income from all sources in a household to determine income eligibility for senior citizen exemptions, this year we use the federal adjusted gross income. And I put a little asterisk on that because there are a few other calculations that go into it, but that is the basis, line 11 on most folks' 1040s. We saw as a result of using federal adjusted gross that there was an increase in eligibility and a greater percentage reduction in assessed value for the folks already enjoying the senior citizen exemption. Right now, we're just starting to put some aggregate numbers to that. But if the legislative intent or the local intent was to expand this program, it seems like we've done that. Westchester County, in fact, just took another step recently to remove all Social Security income from the formula, and this will only apply to the county bill at the moment. For the 2025 roll, we will be granting the exemption, at least on the county portion of the bill, without looking at folks' Social Security income. So that might even further expand the benefit. Last year, we had over 100 first-time senior filers that were eligible. This year, we had 140 plus that were eligible. So we keep adding to the total population of senior citizens who are receiving tax relief under this exemption. In the coming days, we'll be producing our change of assessment notices. They'll be sent out to all 10,000 plus properties. And folks will have just several weeks to file grievances if they disagree with the assessment that we've published, both on the change of assessment notice, but also on the roll that gets placed out on the website on or after June 1st. Grievance forms are available online. We'd certainly be able to help the public if they want to walk through the forms, and if you need us to send you a copy, we certainly can do that. This year, it's June 18th is Grievance Day. It's an important day. It's a deadline for the application itself. We have to receive it by that date. And the Board of Assessment Review will be meeting from 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. to hear grievances. And finally, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but finally, I had talked about this last time. We want to continue our work in modernization, more open data efforts, and also providing tools to the public so they can self-serve, look up their own assessments, understand the history of value for their particular properties. So what we've done is we've engaged with Westchester County GIS, and we acquired an Esri license, a GIS license, to kind of create a custom portal. And it's still pretty new, so you'll have to forgive the look of it. But it's called the Fair, Equitable, and Transparent Property Value Portal. And what it'll do is it produces not only a parcel viewer where you can type in your name or your address or your section, block, and lot and pull up information about your property, but you'll also be able to see the total parcel counts, the total assessed values, other things that might matter when conducting research to see if your home is being valued similarly to other properties. There's a way to explore a property map where you can work with an interactive map going from property to property, looking at attributes. We still have to configure this somewhat, but it allows the customer, our taxpayer, to have a better and easier, access to information that might be pertinent to them. They'll still have access to the property record card and all kinds of other things that matter, but we really want to do something a little bit different. And this will be the final thing I show you. It's at the neighborhood level. It's at the town level. Heat maps where you can actually do a little bit of analysis, where you can see where values are higher or lower. As you zoom in interactively, the map is dynamic and it will update the statistics on the right-hand side of the page, so you can see in your neighborhood, is your value keeping up with your neighbors, et cetera, or compare your neighborhood to other neighborhoods. So this is the kind of transparency that we're looking to achieve, and in the coming weeks, I'm hoping to be able to go live with the solution. Thank you.
All right, very impressive stuff. Moving into the next century, I guess. So thank you for a very thorough and informative presentation, Mike. Do any of my colleagues have questions?
No, great presentation, very thorough.
Thank you, folks. My pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you for making it understandable.
Of course. Happy to do it. This type of material can be a little complex. It's nice to have it just in a presentation. We can also publish these types of things on our website.
Great. Okay. All right. Next, we have a presentation by Westchester Power about the 2024 renewals by Sustainable Westchester. Thank you for joining us, Nick. All right, I'll let you do the talking. I'm sure you'll explain it.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Supervisor and Council, for having me here to talk about Westchester Power and the plans for 2024 for the electricity program renewal. I'm also an Austining resident, so just another thing. That was a very informative presentation, so I was glad to catch that as well. Anyway, I will do a little presentation here and we'll get going. So whatever it is. All right. Is that showing on us? There it is. Okay, great. All right, so my name is Nick Tedrow. I am the Deputy Program Director for the Westchester Power Program here at Sustainable Westchester. And I'm actually joined by my colleague, the Program Director, Dan Walsh. She's just in the background there, so he might chime in here at any point. You want to say hi? Hey, there you are. Anyway, so we'll run through some things here. Just a little recap of who we are and the programs we offer in this program specifically, of course, and the contract for anybody who's maybe unfamiliar and needs a refresher. So, the general purpose of why we're here, what we do, I'm not going to beat you over the head with climate change stuff, but obviously it's ever present. It's something we're dealing with here as temperatures and climate change are settling in. We're getting, higher impacts of severe weather. And in our area, rain and flooding is a big one, of course, where, some examples from our area just this last year, in the fall. Every day, things are getting more, we're getting these direct signs here locally about the reality of our situation and pace of what the future experiences that will be coming our way with more frequency are going to look like here. And of course, that's not just our situation or issue. This is a worldwide issue, and it's going to manifest in different ways, whether we're talking about forest fires in California or Canada and, all the direct environmental and health impacts associated with that. And then, of course, it's something that's going to exacerbate existing societal inequities when we're talking about those that are going to suffer the most from those climate change impacts and who are the most vulnerable. So we have a lot of challenges with all this that we're tackling. But of course, we're lucky to live in a place in New York State where we've got some ambitious goals around switching to renewable energy and cutting emissions. So obviously, we're here to play a big role in that, and in partnership with you all in the town and other municipalities here in Westchester, we're kind of on the leading edge in pioneering that trailblazing effort. So, talking about shared services, shared programming, Sustainable Westchester, for anyone who might not be aware out there, we're a nonprofit here based out of Westchester County, and our members are the municipalities like yourself. 44 of the 45 city, towns, and villages are members of our nonprofit, as well as the county itself, and we provide a variety of shared service programs and other benefits here that folks tap into, communities tap into. So obviously community energy, we're here talking about Westchester Power, but we span a lot of different things that you're familiar with our Energy Smart Homes program, our Grid Rewards program, stuff we do around waste, and some of the cutting edge stuff like our Sunshine to EV. Speaking of innovations and breakthroughs, this organization, with the support of municipalities, has done a lot of, or created a lot of firsts in the state. First intermunicipal sustainability consortium, the first CCA, Westchester Power, demand response, which I just mentioned through Grid Rewards, the Sunshine to EV charging station, and notably as well, this year we've got the Renew America's Nonprofits grant, where we're going to help a lot of nonprofits in the Northeast region, take big steps with their energy efficiency efforts and, experience cost savings and health improvements as a result of all of that. And then of course, Westchester Power sits as sort of the cornerstone or foundation of all the work we've been doing, over about the 10 years this organization's exist and this program, the last 8, in terms of kind of really accelerating those efforts to transition to clean fuels. So within the 44 communities that are in our nonprofit, 29, including the town of Austining, are part of the Westchester Power CCA. And that's roughly around 145,000 residential and small business accounts represented through that in this program that we serve. So just in a nutshell, municipalities come together, they sign up for Westchester Power. You, along with 23 other communities, aggregate together. We administer and operate the program, run an open bidding process with qualified ESCOs who bid in a reverse auction to be for the right to be our supplier for the program. We do all of the communications and notifications and outreach and awareness efforts, primarily to the communities, to make sure that folks are aware of their options and can take the actions that they want to take. The utility is still there. Con Ed is still there as the account or for the account holder as their primary source for questions around their energy service, responsible for their delivery and billing. And then of course there's a lot of built-in oversight, not just accountability to you all at the municipal level, but the Department of Public Service as well, who regulates our program and make sure we're running this thing in compliance with the rules. And then just a couple other notes, it is an opt-out format. So, this helps us leverage the buying power of our communities and, doesn't really function any differently than, energy supply functioned before we were around. It's just, instead of the utility being the default option, your communities like Austining have selected us as the default option, creating choice for consumers. It's consumer friendly. There's no contracts with our program. People can come and go or change between our supply options as much as they like. And then we do note that savings aren't guaranteed in the program based on the fact that we offer a fixed rate product and the utility is a variable rate. But we'll talk more about some of this stuff here. But, to distill it down, Westchester Power really provides, 3 clear and obvious benefits. Providing clean energy, of course, expanding consumer choice, and with the fixed rate, capping electricity costs. So in terms of the environmental impact in 2023, we offset 270 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So in terms of tons of carbon, so that's equivalent to roughly 64,000 cars off the road for a year. And notably as well, as we kind of become more sophisticated at this, as a society and the state level about how we're quantifying, the impacts of CO2 pollution and other types of pollution to our society. The Climate Act, the CLCPA, ordered the Department of Environmental Conservation to develop damages-based value of carbon for state agencies to follow. So basically, this value of carbon guidance establishes monetary value for the avoided emissions of greenhouse gas emissions and other types of emissions as well, as I mentioned. So this basically shows, based on that determination, what we were able to offset through the program and how that translates into social cost converted of, um, the impacts that we're going to experience in terms of a cost of society, with infrastructure, with health, and so on, and what that kind of comes out to as a dollar impact. So thinking about it, in that abstract, more global way here. And then, of course, this program is, we're all doing great things. A lot of our communities in Westchester, including the town, of course, and, through LED lights, green fleets, other kinds of weatherization and other sustainability efforts. But this program alone is the most impactful thing, singular impactful thing that any municipality can do and does do, and beyond other things combined even. So, now moving on to the consumer choice part, I kind of touched on this before, but in the traditional setup, it was just the utility as a default with the option of an individual to be able to go and try and negotiate a contract with a private ESCO energy service company for either green or non-green power. And then with the CCA now, we have the same options, but it's Westchester Power providing that green option as the default. And then, capping costs, there's been a lot of attention around the rates, and we'll talk more about that. But, always since this program has been going on, has offered a fixed rate, and the utility has a variable rate. So we've gone through instances, particularly like a year and a half ago was really notable in the winter of 22, and where utility rates really shot up into the 22-cent range. And folks who were in our program were, still at that steady fixed rate. That didn't move and doesn't move over a contract term. So it provides a security blanket, a way to, to be insulated from those tough spikes, and, offer people who need that budgeting tool or value having that budgeting option and predictability, that comfort. And then, of course, the CCA unlocks a lot of other benefits for villages and towns and cities who take advantage of the CEC, Clean Energy Communities, and other state grants that incentivize being a part of the CCA and supporting renewable energy through state grant dollars, which I know the town has taken advantage of and has done pretty well with CEC, so well done. And then other stuff that we do and offer, customer support and education, support by phone, that in the community, in person, local familiarity touch that the utilities don't offer or have. And oftentimes we're fortunate enough to be in a role where we're helping educate folks about the energy industry in general, environmentalism, sustainability, their bills, whether they're having a negative interaction or not, they're still learning something, and I take away value from that. So, that's an added value of what we bring to the table here, and, a lot of the different services we provide. And then, of course, we're still always looking forward, always looking to, push the envelope and grow and deepen our impacts of things we're doing through the program, such as opt-out community solar, trying to bring, guaranteed savings credits on bills to DAC communities. And then, future evolutions like having direct contracts with clean energy developers to have, clean energy directly delivered into communities at some point in the future. So looking at the current contract, we're coming towards the end of a 2-year agreement that started in November of 2022. The supplier has been, for this contract, Constellation New Energy. You can see the rates here for our two product offerings, the renewable and the standard rate, which are the same for both our residential and small commercial customers. Second, sir. Oh, excuse me. And yeah, so we've trailed, a little bit the Con Ed average for most of the months that we've had these rates. And you can see here the most recent 12-month trailing average from Con Ed is 9.378 versus our 13 and 15.78. Why are we in this position? At the time we were exiting the prior contract, which was fairly favorable against the utility. We were entering the most volatile period of the energy market, at least since this program has been in operation, that we had ever seen. The war in Ukraine was really making energy markets volatile. All the forecasts were gloom and doom, and prices to be through the roof. Combination of things, that conflict, putting a lot of pressure and attention on what the situation in Europe was going to be for energy and how that was going to affect markets here domestically. And then it turns out having to renew at that point ended up it was challenging for all of the variety of reasons of the price moving a lot and trying to pin that down, but also ended up being a point in time where we were buying towards the high end of all of that volatility. And after that process concluded, we kind of saw a softening of the market that no one really saw coming. Which left us at a point where we were locked into a rate that's been higher than the utility by and large over the course of the 2 years. But in contextualizing that, this just to kind of put a point on the fact that it was anomaly versus and maybe just bad luck for lack of a better excuse, but over the course of time, most months or many months we've been or I should say many months we've been above or below, I should say, the Con Ed average, not just for our standard rate, which is typically our more market comparative rate, dirty fuel offering, but also for the renewable rate, where you see many months there, 5 months we were above, or 5 years, like you say, months, years, we were above the Con Ed average, and 4 of those years in the history we've been below, even for the renewable premium product, and then the inverse there, more months below Con Ed and the standard product than above. So these rates have been unfortunate, but not indicative of the historical track record of the program either, and kind of victims of a tough period in time that couldn't see coming for sure. And then just to put things more on an apples to apples perspective, when we're talking about what the default is for you all and most of the other communities, that renewable energy rate, if we're just looking specifically at what other things out there, what other offers out there compared to what we offer, we've consistently been below market cost most months here. We survey, just like we do with the Con Ed rate, we survey other ESCOs out there who offer renewable energy products and track what those offers are. And you maybe get offers in the mail from like Clean Choice or whatever. And, the most recent one I got the other day was like 15.89 or something like that for a fixed rate. So, in terms of being able to deliver renewable energy at a competitive cost relative to what anyone else can do, we're really just still doing a strong job with that, even though these rates are much higher than we've traditionally had. So with the new contract, we do see opportunities and are optimistic about improvements, of course. So, advantages for going back with a fixed rate. We still are hearing a lot of signs hearing a lot of, predictions out there in regard to concerns about what the next few years has to hold for energy prices. So capacity is a big one as we're, making this transition away from 30 generation facilities, these peaker plants in particular being shut down, and trying to accelerate electrification. There's all these new rules coming into effect, and there's also a strain associated to all of that conversion that's going to make capacity a real concern and potentially elevate prices until we can kind of adjust to that new and get caught up to that transition with electrification. Natural gas prices, this is the market setter fuel for electricity these days. And we're expecting, and the market rather is expecting exports to, higher price markets like Europe, we talked about before, being a factor again, and not affecting the cost of prices here domestically. And then, of course, weather is ultimately a really big driver of what prices look like seasonally. So right now we have hot summer predicted, and probably hot weather if trends continue for a long time with climate change, sadly enough. But a lot of hot days above, norms and historical norms. So those are all sort of indicators of prices having a volatile outlook and, speaking again to the value of having a fixed rate. So talking about renewable energy specifically here, traditionally, the renewable energy we've been able to provide and been the only supply that's been available to us rather in New York State is the tier 2 level of renewable energy certificates. So these tier 2 level certificates are, energy generation from facilities that are more legacy, older. So this is primarily hydro facilities in the state, stuff that was built before 2015. And these RECs that we purchase are, they're good, they're renewable energy. And they've just been something that's gone to supporting the continued operation and maintenance and flow of the energy from these legacy facilities. It's kept, our renewable energy here in New York State from leaking out to other states. Since it's a voluntary market, theoretically, folks can come into New York and buy these and then, use them in their state. So we're keeping all of this. We've been supportive of keeping the energy market, renewable energy market here in New York, very strong and creating that demand, which has also led to now, not just us, but there's, several dozens of other CCAs, tens, I don't know exactly how many, but there's many, many more CCAs beyond Westchester County here operating around the state who also buy these voluntary tier 2 RECs. So now we're in a position where there's become some limitations to the availability of these tier 2 RECs. And so the other 2 aggregations in our program, the city of Yonkers, and then the 5 communities up in the north part of the county who are NYSEG utility territory customers, in their recent contract renewals this fall, they had to drop to a 50% renewable default product rather than 100%, with the 100% still being available, but it being an opt-up product, similar to how the standard dirty product is an opt-down product for you all currently. Their customers have to opt up to the 100% they want it, just based on the strain of availability of these renewable energy certificates on the market, suppliers not feeling confident that they could provide 100% renewable energy to those communities as a default offering. But where we sit today now, some months later, is on the horizon of potentially being able to tap into a pool of RECs, these tier 1s that were previously not available to us. So these were previously, obligation RECs that these larger load serving entities like the utilities had to purchase, and they weren't available for voluntary customers like us who were doing it as a, just value-based, non-obligatory entity. So that is going to open the possibility up of us not having to do the 50%, but be able to mix in some tier 1s and pull out not just 100%, but even a little bit better 100% renewable product than we've had before. So just to kind of, visualize where we've been before and where we are now, traditionally it's been 2 rates that we've offered: the standard rate, which is again that fossil fuel mix, and then these 100% tier 2 renewable energy product, which is what the town is on and has been on since the program's been going. So, right now, this is again what I've sort of described as the current situation for Yonkers and the NYSEG communities, and what we're going to, initially, map out as the situation for you all, with the prospect of adding in those tier 1s, which we'll go over here in a minute. But the new default being this 50% mix of the tier 2 and the standard mix. But what we want to do, like I said, is also offer 100% mix and, include these tier 1 RECs into the mix so that we can, maintain a 100% renewable product that can hopefully be a default for folks in the community. So again, this is just kind of visualizing what we do currently here on the left and what we're looking to have for the new contract. So again, there's going to be just a a 50% and a 100% renewable option this time around through the program. So there were always some questions about that. I'll just go over some timeline here and just the kind of nuts and bolts logistics of what's coming up next. And then I'm sure if you have questions, I'm of course happy to answer them. But we're in the stage right now where we're kind of doing our normal processes of going out to municipalities. You're the third municipality we've presented to. So Peekskill was yesterday, and another colleague was in Hastings for their meeting tonight. But right now we're just kind of in the mode of getting in front of boards and councils and talking about the changes. They are, fairly significant changes in some respects to what we've done before. And so we're hoping that, we can kind of work through all the questions and get all of our MOU commitments between now and early June so that we can release an RFP, towards the end of May and look towards a mid-June bid if possible, and awarding a contract in that time frame. So there's a couple of things I'll just continue to highlight here in terms of the timing of the tier 1 RECs. So right now, since this is a new thing, NYSERD is kind of have to change their processes in how they're doing it, and the timeline of when those tier 1 RECs actually become available and when the pricing is known isn't going to be in this May and June timeline. Excuse me. It's going to be, the auctions and sale of those are going to be in the middle of August. So right now, while we're feeling pretty confident that, and hopeful rather, I should say, that those tier 1 RECs are going to be available for us in that time frame, it doesn't really help, in this moment right now where we're working to go to the market earlier in the summer, for a variety of reasons. Typically in the past, like we saw with the last contracting round, if we've kind of stuck to the path we've taken before, where we let the compliance schedule drive us, we can get squeezed on the timelines and be stuck in a situation where we have to pause the program like we did back in 2022 with all of that volatile energy market activity that kind of pushed us out of our time frame. So there's that reason, just being proactive about the timeline and getting out to bid sooner, but also kind of beating the summer months tends to provide a little bit of benefit in terms of the pricing as well. So if we can kind of get to the contracting point and get ESCOs to bid, late spring, early summer, that, is something that we think behooves us in terms of the final pricing versus, letting that fade into the summer a little bit more. So there's that aspect of it. But it is obviously a little awkward since we don't know, right, this moment with certainty that the tier 1 is going to be there and what the price will be. So in terms of the MOU process and what we're going to, ask of you all here now and in the coming session or two after you've had time to deliberate. And Dan is actually going to be sending some updates through email to you all and the rest of the municipalities to further clarify the process that we're trying to implement here for the MOU and ESA executions. But essentially, there's going to be three MOU options for you. So the first would be just to take that 50% default and keep the 100% renewable as an opt-up option for customers to switch into. And so if you wanted to do that, we're going to go to bid initially for that 50% renewable default. And then, the result of that would just be the product that you're all enrolling in. And that would kind of be that. And the rest of the tier 1 stuff would play out as it plays out. But the 50% would be your default choice. Then a second option here is an MOU that gives you the option to, so I should say, basically at the starting point, we're just saying this is the 50% as the default, but there's the option once August comes around to switch into a 100% product as a default. So a second MOU option here for you would give you that option to review the final tier 1 price once that came in and decide, okay, well, the increase which we expect there will be some marginal level of higher price for the tier 1 RECs than the tier 2. Once we have that pinned down, we could come back to you all to decide if you want to sign Austining up for that 100% renewable product at the time that price is known, and re-deliberate that. And then a third MOU option, it would just be like, if the town of Austining decided we just want 100% renewable energy, we want to keep doing that. If we can do it, then we have an MOU option where you automatically trigger to commitment if we're able to go out and get the requisite tier 1 RECs in order to provide a 100% renewable default product. And that would just kind of auto flow to that. So basically the difference between options 2 and 3 are that, option 2 would bring it back into your hands for another deliberation or decision once you got a chance to see what the final price would be. Whereas option 3 makes it just a little more straightforward that if we can get those tier 1 RECs for a 100% renewable product, then you are in for that. And that would just require a simple signature amendment to the ESA. And that'll be, the way that this will function is the initial bid will be for that 50%, like I said, and people will sign an ESA for that. And then there's an amendment that goes into the ES. That's part of the ESA that, speaks to all of this about if the 100% becomes available, we want to sign up for that as the default. And then that would go into effect. So, just to kind of tie back to the larger point, I know there was a lot of words there, but we appreciate you sticking it out with us over the years, and we're setting a model. We've set a model here in the county for CCAs, and we're doing big things in a big state and in a global setting. So we're hoping that the work we've done and the partnership we've had and the leadership that Austining has shown through all of this is something that continues to inspire you, and the impact feels real, and that we can help keep this thing moving and going strong. So here's some general contact information, more information if you want to do that. Reach out to us after the fact here, or provide that to anybody out in your world to go out and seek questions or more information. But I will leave it there for a second. I kind of went on for a minute, so I'll take a breath and a sip of water. And thank you. And Dan, I don't know if you wanted to add anything or clarify anything about what I said there. I think you might, but.
No, I think you covered everything nicely. I just emphasize that, that little pathway through the tier 1, tier 2 is probably confusing, but think of it this way. We want to go out to bed early enough that we could maybe catch some of the better sort of springtime pricing, which no guarantee, but that's kind of the historic tendency is that prices can be a little better earlier on. So everybody would be who's signing on would have that 50% tier 2, kind of traditional tier 2, 50% renewable contract as their base. Everybody would sign that. And then because the tier 1 availability is off a little bit later, as Nick showed with timing wise, will include a mechanism which says those prices come in, and if the prices are within a certain cap, and we're proposing no more than a 0.5 cent impact on the overall price. If it comes in within that cap, we would have one of our MOU options would be that if we hit that cap, you are authorized and we'll sign the associated amendment that adds those additional RECs in, so you come back to that 100%. And we think that's a nice lemonade out of lemons kind of option relative to this shortage in the tier 2 RECs. It brings us an actually kind of a deeper green product, and is kind of a step forward in that way. And then there's another version of the MOU where we're saying if we hit that cap, you've authorized your signatory, your administrator, or your chief elected to go forward, but they have discretion. They can make that decision at the time. But the idea is just to avoid having to come back to your boards again because the timing won't allow for that. So you'll see there'll be a package that'll go out tomorrow, which explains this, has the different versions of the documents. probably sounds complicated, but it's just a matter of swapping one clause to be able to cover that, you know. And then
And
of
I
course,
didn't,
yeah.
I didn't mention the difference between the tier one rec versus the tier two either. I don't know, Dan, if you want to.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
a
this,
little
it
breathless.
was kind of on the screen there, but again, the tier two is a really important part of the market. Yes, they call it the maintenance tier. It keeps those legacy facilities running. They need to do maintenance. They're fighting in a market where, you know, you get these tremendous crashes in the prices, and it's tough for them to keep going. They have to do the maintenance to optimize their outputs. And it's generally puts upward pressure for the development of the renewable market. Tier one is part of the New York State tariff system where you build a new facility, and this is part of the compensation that goes into the payback for that facility. So you're actually driving new construction. So it's generally, you know, thought of as maybe a deeper green option. They're all part of the total market. Tier one has generally been more expensive, but tier two has been going up over the years quite a bit. When we started the program 8 years ago, we were down at, you know, half a cent and that kind of range. And now we're at like 2.5 cents for the tier two recs, 2.7 cents. So normally tier one has been more than that. There's some indication already, like half of the tier one pricing, it's like one tranche of the projects are in, and they're coming in 3.1 cents. We have some folks who are saying the rest of it might come in even a little lower than that. So if you're talking about a 50-50 blend, that might only have an impact of like 0.2 cents or 0.3 cents on the total price. And for that, you're getting back your 100% renewable and you're going deeper green. So we're offering that as what we think could be a great default for all our towns that want to make sure they have the highest impact.
Okay.
That was probably overwhelming, I'm sure.
All right. Can you go back to the timeline for me on the slide?
Sure. Yeah, I'll put that back up real quick.
I just want to understand that we would enter back into the contract in June. And thank you. That helps.
It would be an
MOU.
MOU that authorizes Sustainable Westchester to go out to bid as with us as part of that consortium, as I understand it. And then we would enter into the contract with whoever the prevailing bidder is.
That's right. Yeah, so the MOU is basically that commitment, that the provisions and conditions of which we're laying out here, should they be met, will oblige the town to sign the contract.
Okay, so assuming we go to sign the MOU and then by the end of May, you are releasing an RFP and expect to award the bid to whoever you're going to get the energy from by mid-June. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, that's the goal. So at that point, again, we'd be awarding a 50% renewable default contract. And then these lower parts of the timeline would kick in down the line once we're able to establish.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to ask questions about that.
Oh, go ahead.
So that's all right. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand that. So we'll enter in with all of the other communities into the understanding that you're going to be bidding for us. You should have found out what your bid pricing will be by mid-June. And then the final pricing will be by August.
Yeah, for that 100% rounded out number. So the 50% will be the 50% at the time where we do the initial award. It's just a matter of knowing exactly what the delta is going to be but for the tier one recs from the tier two to round out that final 100%.
So it'll be
Yeah, actually,
50% carbon, so 50%, we'll call it the dirty option, and 50% of the tier two green option. to start. And then what you're saying is that we have the option to either automatically roll into all green as you find out the pricing on that later on in the year, or we can hold off on that decision and see what the numbers are and then roll into it. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, we can, you know, depending on which MOU option you pick, you could give yourself the either you know, oblige yourself with it as long as it's within the cap that we're setting out there, or you could authorize you know, your administrator or or you as the mayor to sign again within that cap, but within your discretion. Those are the two kind of versions that we're looking at. We're actually missing one, maybe one schedule item here. We should know the pricing for the tier 1 Rex in probably mid-July. So before the actual sales are transacted. So we would learn about that price. We would then know if it came within our cap, communicate that to everybody, and then we'd have to all, you know, based on that final pricing, then we would ask the folks who wanted to move forward with that or had already committed to move forward with that to sign this 1.5 page amendment, which swaps the products. It says now the 100% is the default, and that's going to include these 50% tier 1 Rex. And then with that, the supplier now has the contracts with which they can go out and purchase these tier 1 Rex because they have the commitment on that. So that's the kind of maybe a little bit of the missing piece of information in there.
And the opt-out period from September to early October is if the municipality doesn't like what you came up with. What's the opt-out period?
That's actually the customer opt-out period. So that assumes that, you know, we've got everybody in for whatever products end up being the products, and then it's just the flow of the compliance mailing that we do to notify potential customers of that, so they have that period to opt out of the program initially if they don't want to be enrolled in the new rates altogether. But of course, anyone can opt out anytime, but there's always these 30-day minimum periods. We're obliged to give a notice and opportunity to the customers to opt out of rate changes if they decide that they want to do that.
Maybe it would help to put some tentative numbers, and these are just today's snapshot, but we have indicative pricing that we collect on a regular basis, and prices are down from where we are in the current contract. That you know, you probably shouldn't be surprised at that. The base price without any Rex, the last indicative price we got was 10.2 cents. The Rex, again, the tier 2 Rex being around 2.7 cents or something like that. That's taking your 50% product up to, you know, 11.8 or something, those, well, half of that, 11.5 or something in that range. And then if the timing all works out and everybody signs on, you're adding on this 50% for the tier 1. Sounds like that's going to be close to the tier 2. So again, you're adding at most $0.015. You might be up to about 13 cents for this 100% renewable with, as I say, having taken you know, the step forward in terms of the being a deeper green product. And we're coming down, you know, a couple or 2.5 cents from where we are on the current contract. So
Okay,
Yeah.
my question is, and so between early September and early October, you will be sending out a notification to all of the residents in the program, explaining the new rate and giving them the option to opt out.
Yeah, so the letter will go out early September, and the 30-day opt-out period will span that date in early September to a date in early October. And then we'll be doing, you know, public meetings, outreach, you know, once that final price is determined, all the way up until and probably beyond the enrollment period starts November 1st. So there's going to be a smattering of outreach and, you know, communications that are happening to make the public aware and, you know, make sure that people have the choices in their mind to make, you know, over that time period.
Any of my questions? Okay, so I guess one of the decisions we're gonna have to make is it's a 0.5 cent cap. Would, in the difference of, the rate they present to. All right, explain the 0.5 cap to me again, so it'll be.
Yeah,
0.5%
yeah.
Over the
Um,
tier
mm.
2 rate or a 0.5 cent?
over what the price would be, what the price will be for the 100% tier 2. So we have apples to apples.
Okay.
We will have a 100% tier 2 price in there as an opt up. It won't be the default product, but we'll have that price to compare to. And so it shouldn't take us more than 0.5 cent above that price.
Okay, and so when the tier 1 pricing comes in, do we shift to 100% tier 2? Do we shift to 50/50 within a 0.5 cent cap?
If it comes in within
If
that
we make
cap,
that decision,
yeah, if we come in within that cap, depending on which MOU you select, if we are concerned about timing because obviously like the NYSERDA sale is a very inflexible thing. It happens when it happens. So our recommendation would be to, try to make that decision essentially when you sign the MOU, saying, okay, if it's within this cap, then we're in. That way that MOU says if it's within the cap, then you'll sign the associated amendment, which
then we'll transition to 100%
correct.
green energy as the default.
That's right. That's right.
Moving up from 50% green energy as the starting default.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
board members would that.
Unfortunate it seems a little convoluted, but this is how we're tying together the various schedule constraints in a way that will make it happen.
Okay, so you're telling me that you're gonna send an email this week?
Yep.
That we are gonna make the decision on which of these options, so I guess I'm gonna poll the board. Do you wanna stay with the 50/50 or move to the, if it's within 0.5 cent cap, to the full 100% green energy as the default, with the residents always having the option to either go down to the lower tier and or opting out at any time.
Important. Yeah.
So the default would be the green?
Yeah.
I personally would feel more comfortable having further discussion amongst us before I make a
This is our
decision. This
option.
is a lot.
Okay,
I need to discuss with everybody.
okay.
We'll get a copy of the movie.
No, we'll get that coming this week, so we can bring it back for another work session.
Well,
Yeah,
Or-
that's
Actually, we don't have time to bring it back for another work. session,
yeah,
that's
I
the
mean,
problem.
so if the next town board legislative session after next week would be, I believe, June 11th. I don't know if that's too late for this process.
I mean, we don't want to go past pretty much June 15th-ish in order to have everybody on at once. So June 11th just pretty much gets us there. And I think, I don't want, we're not trying to push everybody to rush this. We want you to have the information, be able to do it. We'll get by with that, but.
Okay, I mean, I have 2 other board members that believe that going to the full green option is the thing to do. We will look at the MOU. They will each have a opportunity to weigh in after they have a full understanding of what the memorandum of understanding is and of the different pieces and have time to digest it. So we will get back to you with the we'll get back to you.
Yeah,
But
and we'll
but I feel like we're leaning toward the default green
Right.
when it comes available, with the residents being able to move their option and also being able to opt out if they so choose. So as long as the residents have the option to move up and down, I don't mind the default being the one that will be better. Also, we did I believe we earned, with this being one of our actions, probably $100,000 in money, in grant money, because of this action and some of the other actions that we've taken, for our community to offset other, green incentive things.
Right, through the clean energy communities.
Which is, in our case, a vehicle, so.
Yeah, and the awards are pretty rich these days for the new tranche of CEC grants,
But it also helps the planet, and I think that's the main reason that we all do this.
for sure.
So, all right, I thank you for coming. I thank you for all of the information. Any one of us may reach out to you for more. Know that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's,
Happy to provide
we
information.
encourage that, and we're happy to meet with anybody separately if they want to be, catch up on any particular piece of this or go over any piece of it. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Good night now.
Good night.
Okay. All right, well, that is it for our work session this evening. We should adjourn to executive session for advice of counsel, contracts, and personnel. Okay, thank you all for joining us this evening. I hope to see you at the parade. It's a long parade route from Croton Avenue all the way down Main Street to Spring Street to Nelson Park. So anywhere along the route, you can sit in the shade and wave at our firemen and and join us for the memorial ceremony for our service members lost in our community. Thank you and have a great weekend.